Hello, welcome to Gallery 1 Visual Art Center Art2GO Valentine Kit. This is a part of a special program that we have at Gallery 1 called Art2GO, and it makes art available for everyone in their own home. So thank you for inviting us in. Today we're going to be working on a Valentine kit. So this is what you're going to be making today. We have some beautiful, beautiful papers for you to work with, and you're going to learn some great skills and have fun and think about the greetings and your friendships and how you want to express yourself to your friends today. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start out with your supplies. You have a variety of supplies that were in your Art2GO kit. So you're going to have a variety of papers. This will be your scratch paper. These will be some Valentine's papers. And you have several of these cards, and this is what we're going to be using to make our Valentines. So I'm going to go ahead and select my red card. You can see we have a variety, and Valentines can be any color and any size. So this is what I'm going to be using for the structure of my Valentine, the very first one that I used today. And you have a lot of papers in there, so go ahead and set aside one of these scratch papers to start with, because we're just going to be practicing to start out with. Okay, let's look at our tools. So one of the things that you have is a piece of cardboard, and you're going to use this to protect the surface of your work area, because we're going to be using a regular push pin, and this is what we're going to use to pierce the paper. So what you want to do is just make sure that whatever tabletop you're using is going to be protected. A lot of times you can put a magazine even under this. Okay, so you have cardboard, you have a push pin, which you're using for piercing paper. You have a little plastic grid, and I don't even remember what these are called, but they're going to be great for working on our Valentine today, because what we're going to be doing is piercing holes. And this is a way for you to set this up, hold your paper down, and make sure that you're always safe with your push pin. Okay, next you have a protractor. We're going to be using this for measuring. We've got some measurements, and we're also going to be using it for a straight edge. And how we're going to be using that is as follows. To press like this. What you can do is set up a nice line. You're holding your paper down at the same time you're using this nice straight line, and you're not going to be poking your fingers. So that's what we're going to be using the protractor for. And after you have this and fool around with it, you're really going to like it a lot. The other thing that you're going to need is probably a pencil and maybe a pair of scissors. So those would just be a couple of things that you need from home. Okay, so let's get our work area set up. So first of all, I'm going to have cardboard, my push pin, and I am going to select a piece of paper that I want to practice on. Okay, so let's discuss a little bit about paper characteristics. This is a softer paper. Paper is made of cotton, and depending on what kind you buy and what kind of finish your paper is, it has more or less cotton in it. We're going to be using card stock for our structure today. It's great to pierce the holes in, and you'll just see that it's great all around. Plus, you can get these cards or just cut up your own cardstock just about anywhere. Okay, so let's set up our work area. We've got our cardboard, which we must always use for our piercing. And let's just get started with how we're going to be working with these materials. So I am going to have, I'm just going to use this small piece of paper. And I've already showed you a little bit, but let's say I want to sketch out a heart. You'll probably be sketching on sketch paper to begin with when you make your first real Valentine, but this is just going to be fun. So I'm going to put my finger here and press down. So just make sure you take your time. If you press the holes too close together, there's a possibility that you might rip your paper, but that's not that big of a deal. We're just practicing on this. So you can see that I'm using my sketch as a guideline, and I'm just going along and working on this Valentine. So I don't know if you can see, you're going to have a couple of different choices when you're making your Valentine as far as how the texture of that's going to feel. So just go ahead and practice. You don't even have to make a heart. I'm just going to stick with that today because this is about friendship, just letting people know that you care about them. So go ahead and just practice. What I like about teaching is that in person is that I can have questions. So I'm going to try to anticipate a couple of your questions. Becky, how do you want to make sure you're holding this down properly? Just make sure that it's covering up your paper, whatever paper you're using, and you're just holding it down with the opposite hand. You can see I'm well away from my fingers when I'm piercing that paper. So that will be how you're going to be using your protractor. Okay, this is going to be really fun. I'm going to show you how to use this little plastic grid. Okay, so for this practice, I took a piece of scratch paper like this, and what I'm going to do is take my scratch paper and I folded it in half. So you're going to have a nice, what I call a soft fold. You had one other thing I forgot to unpack in your box, and this is just a piece of cardboard. I made it out of a cereal box in the shape of a heart so that I could do a quick sketch. Okay, so you can see that I did that quick sketch. And now I'm going to go ahead. This is where you're going to need your scissors from home. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that heart out. And that way, this heart is going to be a little more symmetrical than that heart that I just sketched earlier right on my paper. So now I have a very symmetrical heart, which just means it's the same on both sides. Okay, so this is how I'm going to use the grid. I'm going to place down one of my cards, and I'm going to take my sketch. Now you're going to have a lot of time to be doing some sketching on your own. You don't have to do it this quickly. I'm just showing you, I made a lot of sketches and did a lot of fun practicing before I did this heart. So, you know, take your time doing your sketch and just have fun with it. So I'm going to take my heart and I'm going to lay this grid on here. And I think that I hope that you can see that I'm holding down my white paper on my pretty much centered cardstock paper. I hope that you can see that. I'm using this as kind of a center. And I'm going to use this. I'm holding down my plastic grid, and I'm just going to start pressing these holes in, piercing the paper, using this grid to hold my paper down and to make sure that I get kind of an even design. So what I'm going to do is fill in an area. And make a nice design. Now you do not have to use your sketch paper for this. You could actually even use an additional piece of paper to hold down. So you can see I kind of have a little design here that I'm making right on my heart. So you can see that I'm taking my time. Be thinking about the person that you're making your Valentine for. Maybe you're going to make one for yourself to start out. Oh gosh, I have a little design here. So just keep working. I hope that you can see my hands well enough to see what I'm doing. Now your fingers might get a little bit tired. Stretch them every once in a while. Because I'm holding this in place with my other hand, I can just go right back and start working on my design again. Now, if I had wanted to, I could have made a sketch on my sketch about a pattern that I wanted to follow. But right now, I think it's really important for you to just practice your technique and see what you want to do with your Valentine. You have many different colors, so you probably want to use, a different one for each person. The cards that are available to you in your kit, you can even cut those into smaller pieces. I have a couple of examples for you down at the gallery for you to look at. Okay, so look, I kind of have a design on here. I hope that you can see that. I am going to go ahead now and just go around the outside of this heart. I'm using those prepared open holes in my grid and just going around the outside. You may not want to go over this part, however you can. We can always check in with that later and see how that works. Ooh, I'm going to be wanting to make a hole right there. Okay, I'm anticipating questions. Becky, can I rest during this? Yes, you may. Ooh, that's a good question to ask. Becky, what if my grid slips? Just set it back. All of this is for you to use as a tool any way that works best for you. So go ahead and just do your best. Oh, I cannot wait for you to see how this is going to turn out. Okay, so here is my heart, picking up my grid. I'm picking up my sketch. One thing I wanted to tell you before I pick that up, if you have a piece of paper that you really like, you can just leave it on there if you want. No glue required for holding this sketch paper down on your cardstock. But this is the great reveal for this. Oh my gosh. I hope that you can see the light coming through here. I hope this is what makes it so fun. Oh, so far I like mine. Okay, I don't have to stop here. One thing I like about working on an artwork is to look at my outside format of my area, fill my space nicely. I'm going to go ahead and put my protractor back up here. I don't know, trying to work in an area that you can see really well. I'm kind of using this little tiny hole right here. That's going to be the center of my paper. So I'm kind of guesstimating right here where the center of my paper is. Okay, so let's say I want to write the word love on here. Like maybe you're giving a Valentine to your parents or your brother and sister. Maybe you want to write that on there or someone's name. So how I'm going to go ahead and do that is I'm going to line up my piece. I might go back and work a little bit more on this later, but for right now, I kind of just like it the way it is. I'm going to set my protractor up here a little bit higher, and I'm going to look at that center, pull it down a little bit near my Valentine, and I'm going to write the word love here with my pencil. I'm going to write softly. It's going to be kind of like a sketch, and I'm going to figure out that my heart is about that wide, and I'm going to write the word love, so it's going to be L, sketching lightly, O, V, E. Now I'm hoping that all of you can see that really well. And I can go back and erase some things later, so we're not going to be able to see this. Now I see that I should have had this moved over a little bit. Go ahead and do some erasing. So what I like about doing these videos is I'm making a mistake right now. It wasn't a big mistake, but you can see, I can go ahead and start over again. We go ahead and do I want this to be in the center, so I'm going to do my O, V, then I'll do my E, and lastly, my L. So there we go. Oh, I love it. Okay, so let me show you how the push pin is going to work with my protractor. Okay, here's the bottom of my E. I'm going to go ahead, make those holes. I'm going to do the bottom of my L. Go ahead, make those holes. I'm using the edge of my ruler or my protractor. I've also called it a straight edge to make sure that that line's even. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do my V. And my E. I have an example down at the gallery where I did some nice block letters. And go ahead and take a peek at that. Hopefully you did when you picked up your kit. I think the possibilities are endless for this. And once you start practicing, you are going to see exactly how you want to do your own personalized Valentine. So it's also nice to kind of have a frame around your artwork. And what I mean by that is maybe some design towards the outside of your card. I go ahead and do my O. If you really want to have a nice circle or something, you could always use like a bottle cap or something to set down on your paper, or maybe you have a stencil, something like that. Okay, so far, this is what I've got. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. So I'm not seeing the pencil lines anymore. And then if I want, I can go ahead and turn these particular letters into block letters. Okay, so that was just a real quick example. And now we can go into a little bit more about working on your design and centering. So I hope that you can see the light coming through. And at home, I did some of these and just put them up on my window. I hung them up with a piece of thread, and they make a really nice window decoration because you can see the light right through your paper. There's a lot of possibilities. Okay, so let me get out another card and we'll get to work. We will practice doing this again. Okay, so I am going to get out my sketch paper again. And what I'm going to do this time with my sketch paper is maybe have a little bit more thought into my design. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, I can measure about 3 inches is going to be great. You're working towards the center of your card. So I'm going to have 3 inches. So it's always nice to have something to measure with. I have these all over my house, just in case you need to do a quick doodle. Okay, I don't know if you had a chance to look at your paper or the Valentine or whatever you've made so far, but there are going to be 2 different textures to your Valentine, depending on if you have the paper right side up or turned over. So just go ahead and feel that with your hand. This has a lot of texture, and oftentimes this would be the part that you would want facing up on your Valentine. You can still see through it, but it has a different kind of texture. You can feel the bumps on the paper. The only problem with this is, as you can see, my words are backwards. So I'm going to show you how to solve that problem. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and think about a different word that I want to say. How about writing the word you? So I'm going to write it backwards. Y, O, U. Now you did not know that that is one of my super skills. My superhero skills is to be able to write backwards. Who knew that that was going to be my superpower? Okay, so here is the word that I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a block. Do I have to have a little tiny circle? I kind of like that. So let's say you wanted to say you plus me. So this is how I'm going to make a block letter. Now your block letter's probably going to look different than mine. Okay, so this is how you're going to do it if you want your rough edges to be sticking upwards. So I'm going to grab another piece of paper and show you how to go about doing that. This is really fun. I think you're going to like it. Okay. Oh, that has writing all over. There we go. Ooh, here's another little design I just made with circles. And that's a great one. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to fold this as if it is another card that I'm going to make. I'll say you plus me on this one. So here's my card. Now what I want to do is have the word you right here. So I'm going to flip this open. And I'm going to have the backward word on here. Remember, I want to make sure this is kind of towards the center of my Valentine. So here I go. Now, this time, instead of using this to do my words, I'm going to go ahead and grab this again. Now, if it's hard for you to see your words through that, go ahead and just sketch this in. I'm not writing real hard, so it's not denting my paper. I just want to be able to see where I'm going to be piercing my paper. And because this is sketch, coloring that in. Okay, so go ahead, plastic grid. We've got to find out what the name of that stuff is. Okay, so I'm continuing to hold this in place. I have my push pin, and I'm just going to go ahead and wherever I see that Y, pressing it in, staying in that outline that I made. More of a block shaped letter. Sometimes these look really subtle when you're first working on them, and then when you pull the paper off, it looks great. Now I am kind of going a little bit faster than I would encourage you to go when you're first learning how to do this. Let me slow down just so you can see. There is no rush in doing this. This is a great activity to do, you know, after dinner, after school, after work, just to kind of relax. It's a repetitive motion. Oh, and speaking of repetitive motion, remember, you can rest your fingers whenever you need to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and speed up a little bit so you can see what this is going to look like and feel like. So one of the things that's really fun about being able to turn your paper over and reverse your image is that you can have it be two different textures on your card. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. If you want to use the same design more than once, that's great too. That's what's so great about doing the sketches. You don't have to erase on your card or anything like that. You can go ahead and use this more than once. The great reveal! You, spelled backwards, is you. Okay, so now I can see where I want to fill this in a little more. So it actually looks like a Y. Crisp up those lines. By adding more holes without getting them too close together. Now, you don't have to press your push pin real hard. If you find that you like doing this a lot and the push pin bothers your fingers, there are a couple of different kinds of tools. You can get actual paper piercer. You can use ceramic tool, like piercing tool that you would use to scratch for your pottery. If you've ever taken a pottery class with Krista, those work well. Okay, how is my Y looking now? Ooh, it's looking and feeling great. Now, it may bother me that that is not a straight line on the outside of my Y. I'm going to go ahead and straighten that up by using my straight edge. Ooh, much better. Much better if that's what you want. I can definitely tell that this is a Y. Ooh. Okay, so you can have the rough side up. Now I can go ahead, put this back on here, and have the smooth side for this part of my Valentine. Okay. Ooh, let me get another one. I don't have to keep using the same one. Ooh, I like this really angular line piece. Okay, so now I can go ahead. Looks a little bit too big. So you will be spending a lot more time with your planning so that once you practice doing a card, you're going to go back and probably reevaluate how you want to do things. So rough side for the letter. Now I can have the smooth dots, which would be the perimeter of my Valentine. My cardboard's getting a bit worn out because I've been using it so much. If you have a shoebox or anything like that, sometimes a padded envelope will work. Something like that. If you wear out your cardboard by making so many different Valentines. Graph paper could help. I just like doing regular scratch paper just because I like the texture of it more with the pencil to use the drawing paper. Okay, so you can see that I'm going to have two different textures. I'm going to do half of this Valentine. So, like I said, if you have a piece of paper that you like, you can stick it to your piece like that. So now I've got smooth and rough. Okay? So those are some of your skills. So let's go over those skills again. Paper piercing and knowledge of soft and smooth, firmer papers. I'm sure you have all kinds of different papers at home. You can even use magazine paper. This is something I had a lot of fun with, just fooling around, making a border with some arrows. Not everything has to be a heart. It's just that's what we're focusing on right now. So you're going to be doing your single line drawing, which is a skill. your protractor usage, measuring and straight edge for piercing. You're also going to be thinking about your design. So let's go back to that one more time. The reason we have this grid this size is because this is a great area to use for your cards. Just to kind of focus on an area this large because it fills the space nicely. Okay, so let's do one more sketch and do a complete Valentine. Okay, so I've got my paper. I've got the area that I'm going to be working on. Let me get another piece of scratch paper. And if you want, this is a great way to see what kind of area. Any kind of scratch paper will work. Just don't be doodling on your schoolwork. Okay, here I am. I've got my sketch. I think I would like to do something a little more angular this time. So I'm going to sketch out my heart. Then I'm going to go back in. And if I want, I can use that method that I did before, having symmetrical. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that a lot. Remember, this is our sketch paper, so I kind of want my Valentine to be a little bit symmetrical, but I really like that I'm going to be using some angled line. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open my card up. Now, if you wanted to punch through to both sides, you could, but traditionally, I wouldn't suggest that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, lay this down. And remember I talked about framing or a border? I'm going to do that right now with this. I'm going to put some of those lines in there using my plastic grid. Now remember, you're going to be working a lot slower than this. You don't want to rush when you have something sharp in your fingers right there. Go ahead and have a bit of a border there and here. I love this little plastic grid because it is holding everything down in place. Okay, so I have a bit of a border. If I had all the time in the world and this is a Valentine I was making for somebody that I cared about, I'd be going a lot slower. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I used that for my frame. Oh, look, missed a bit up here. Line that back up. And remember, if I was planning something out, I would spend a lot more time than this. Okay, so there's my border. Here's my heart. I'm going to go ahead now. I want to use my straight edge because we all know how much I like this. Go ahead and do this side of my Valentine. Then I want a nice, crisp, geometric. Actually, I want a geometric, kind of a triangle shape for the bottom of my heart. Now remember, you're going a lot slower. Okay, do this part. My paper is kind of holding itself in place right now because this is pushing both papers together. Remember when I joked and said we didn't need glue? We don't. I mean, it may not last forever, but it will hold your Valentine together. Okay, so my reveal. Ooh, I like it. Okay, now I'm going to take, I know earlier I talked to you about softer papers. I'm going to take this now and I'm going to go ahead and make a little tiny heart to put in the center. Set this up here. I want it to be smaller. I also want it to have that angled line. Even notebook paper, once you start punching a lot of holes in it, you can just leave that right on your Valentine. And if you know you're going to leave it on there and you don't think that the piercing is going to be enough to hold it together, you can kind of use a little dab of glue. Okay, so I'm placing this. This is going to be my focal point for my heart. And I'm going to go ahead. This is what is going to be holding it in place. The light blue paper that I'm using is very soft. And it's getting stuck right to that other piece. Actually not, sorry, not as good as I thought. I guess we'll stick with the scratch paper for that. Sorry, that worked when I wasn't doing a video. Like I said, that's going to be something that you can practice with. Okay, so I'm going to be tightening up these lines. I've got my heart. I want to go ahead and fill in my frame a little bit so I know what I'm working with. And I want a bit of a background here. So I'm working on the negative space behind my heart right now, filling that in with holes, giving it some texture, some visual texture, some nice line. My heart is still going to be my focal point. Now I can go ahead and fill in that line if I want, or I can just make another one right here. It's like if you want to do the block letters, gosh, I hope that you guys can see my paper piercing. If you want to do the block letters, I've also drawn those right on the back, on the underside of the card, and that works well. And then you just have to go ahead and erase it. Now remember we talked about the different textures of your Valentine. So all of these is the pressing down motion, just working on the negative space behind my heart right now. I'm not going to pierce my heart. Just making some nice line here, kind of framing it further. Remember, you're going to go a lot slower than this. But once you get the hang of it, it's like anything else. You just want to do it until your finger needs to rest. Okay, so that is that so far on my Valentine. Now remember, if I'm giving this to somebody that I really care about, I'm watching all of these details. Also, if you just have a plain ruler at home, that works for this as well. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. Where I thought I was piercing this little heart on and having it stick, ooh, I might be able to use that for something else. You can see that these holes right here, and make them stand out a little better. Okay, so I've got that. Hopefully you can see through this. When you hold it up to the window, you're gonna love it. Okay, I'm gonna turn this over like this. Now I have those pokey sides, but I want those pokey sides to be on the other side of my Valentine to give it a little bit more interest. So I'm going to use my straight edge. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And I'm pressing my push pin down so that I'm piercing through the other side of the surface of my card. This cardstock is very sturdy, shouldn't have any trouble with it at all as far as, you know, having it rip or anything like that. Add a lot of interest now by filling in that negative space and making it a little more interesting. Ooh, I think I need one right there. I've made several of these for family members. They're really fun. When you look at your paperwork, you will see that you can go further by possibly making your own stationery with just the first letter of your name, possibly. I've hung some of these from string in the window, and those are nice because you can see through them. And like I said, ooh, look at that nice texture I have there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep filling in that negative space, you know, as needed. And what I would like to do is then again go ahead and have another little bit up here. So instead of having it be a frilly Valentine, I'm going to have it be a little more crown-like. I'm using this line right here. So this is kind of like an archway. Could be turned into a crown. It could be turned into a rainbow. So remember, you don't have to just stick with the Valentine mode once Valentine's is over. You can see this has a lot of possibilities. So you can also use the curved line on your protractor for some interest. Now I'm going to get a little bit different shape of my line right now because I'm using the inside of that instead of the outside. Okay, so here we have a Valentine. Here's our sketch. another Valentine. Where did I put my other one? Oh, okay. I am going to be working on this one some more. And I really like this one a lot. Very simple. I could go ahead and put a border in here I want. If I want, go ahead and filling in with some more piercings, but I kind of like this one simple. And sometimes you can see that there's a little bit different. You want to put like a bright color underneath there. Instead of holding it up to the light, you can add another color underneath your card. And you would just go ahead and make sure that that was cut to the proper size and do a little bit of gluing. Personally, I like it like this because I can feel it and I know it's handmade and I like everything about it. Okay, so we're looking at our materials. We're learning how to paper pierce. Remember to protect your table. Practice, practice, practice. Use your new skills to create cards and stationery, whatever you would like, and any kind of correspondence. So this time of year, correspondence is so, so important. Well, this is a quick wrap up. I hope that you had as much fun as I did today with our Pierce Paper Valentine. So I hope you had fun with all of your new skills that you learned, and I hope you have some great paper Valentines and stationery or whatever it is you want to make. Have a great time, and thank you again from Gallery 1. Bye.